So, what I wanted to do is kind of share my opinion on tools and corrections and give you a little bit more thoughts on that to, you know, hopefully help you understand them a little better. So, right off the bat, the one thing I'm going to say is that it's not about the tool, it's about the person using them. Okay. Any tool, whether it be a flat buckle collar or a pinch collar or an e collar, any tool can be dangerous to a dog if it is not used properly. I know for me, I have never once injured or had an issue using a prong collar with a dog. Never. I use them pretty often, specifically if I'm working with a dog that weighs more than me or a dog that is really, really leash reactive or something like that. Because how am I supposed to train a dog that's dragging me across the yard? Probably not gonna happen. And I personally am not gonna put them on a held head halter because I don't wanna break their neck, and I'm not gonna put them on a front leash harness or a front clasp harness because it's horrible for them. All it does is squeeze their shoulder blades together and make them face plant. So a prong collar pinches the skin on their neck. I mean, look, I can tell you for a fact, if you ask me if I would rather be yanked by my head, pinched my skin neck, or had my shoulders like this every single time I tried to pull away, I can promise you, like, I'll choose the pinching of my neck skin. Plus, their skin is 3 times thicker than ours is, so like, it's about the use of it. I've watched dogs get strangled on flat buckle collars, and I've watched dogs sustain serious injuries on head halters and front lead harnesses. It's never about the tool, ever. It's always about the person using it. Um, 2, tools are there to make the job easier, and they're also there to keep dogs and people safe, right? If you have a dog that is jumping a fence and running away and crossing live traffic and stuff like that, you need to fix that. That's not like something that you can just let keep going because how many times is that dog going to jump the fence and run through traffic before it gets hit and killed? Are you willing to gamble that? Like for real? Because I'm telling you, that jumping the fence and running, that's a self-rewarding behavior. They are going to continue doing it until you make it unrewarding to them. So you have a choice. You can either make it unrewarding or you can let your dog get hit by a car. Your choice. So I guess that's up to you, but I'm not going to let a dog die just because I'm afraid to issue a correction. And that's just my personal thought on it. Uh, Corrections should never even be used unless the dog knows what it is that you're asking them to do. Corrections are not used to force a dog into compliance. For example, if you've never taught a dog to sit or lay down or stay or come, and you put an e-collar on them and you're just lighting them up, waiting for them to do one of those things, you're abusing them. However, if your dog has already learned recall and you put an e-collar on them and you're taking them out to a new location for the first time, you give them that recall, they turn, look at you, and then choose to ignore you and run away, that is when you would correct them, right? We're not issuing a correction because they don't know something. We're issuing a correction because they're choosing to ignore us and do something else. Okay? Corrections are not very applicable and they're not very effective if the dog does not know what it is they're supposed to be doing. And if you're just going to keep lighting up a dog into compliance, you're abusing them. So, last thing, and I know I already kind of touched on this, but corrections shouldn't be viewed as abuse, okay? If they're being used properly. A correction is not beating a dog, it's not like scaring them into compliance, it's none of those things. A correction is exactly what it says, it's correcting that behavior in that moment. And it can look 1,000 different ways, okay? Technically, so I'll give you an example. I had a dog who was very, very dog reactive, like would attack them as soon as they got close to her. So At the beginning of her training, I saw her go to full on attack a dog and I scooped her up. I didn't yell at her. I didn't hit her. I didn't scream. I didn't do anything. I just picked her up. And in that moment, I told her, we're not doing that anymore. That's not okay. You can't just attack somebody else. And again, I didn't yell, I didn't hit, I didn't do anything like that. I just picked her up and let her know, no, that's not happening anymore. And then I put her down. I continued working her around the other dogs and everything was fine. But in that moment, I had to let her know, no, we're not doing that anymore. And if I hadn't done that, that behavior probably would have never stopped because there was no reason for her to ever think that that was no longer okay. So, like, if you're somebody who improperly uses tools and corrections, shame on you because you're making it hard on everybody else and you're making it difficult to communicate what corrections and tools are actually used for and why they're not so bad. So if you're somebody that's out there abusing these things, I'm going to ask you kindly to stop because you're making everybody else's life harder.